Hello everyone, this is Extreme Trail Talk coming to you live from Johannesburg. I'm Arnold Goetz. Good to have your company as we have the second broadcast of the Kalahari Augrabies Extreme Marathon and how to prepare for the race, which happens to be on the 18th of October for over 7 days with one rest day. Tonight we talk nutrition, so stay right where you are because you're going to find out things that you never knew about what it takes to do this on your stomach. So this is Extreme Trail Talk and we focus on nutrition in particular. Very nice to have two what I would call veterans, because I think if you've done one of these then you are a veteran of the Kalahari Augrabies Extreme Marathon. Sitting furthest away from me, Hilton Dunn, a man who finished 3 of them, and he's been on the podium in every one of them. Second in 2010, first in 2012 and then third in 2015. Nice to have you with us, Hilton Dunn. Very kind of you to make the time. And sitting closest to me, Alison Glass, who completed the race in 2016 with a second place and a comrade's green number in the offing this year, if all goes well. Ali, nice to have you with us as well. Welcome. Let's just set the scene for people. What made you, Hilton, first of all, want to do this extreme mental and physical test?
I love my running. I really enjoy it, and it started off with the smaller races, and I knew I had to progress gradually to the bigger races. So it took a couple of years, in fact more than a couple. It took a lot of years, probably about 10 years to get to the Kalahari, and I knew I had to do the training, and I knew I had to do, get the discipline and prepare for this race, because it is just that grueling and needs to be respected. Alison,
for you, what drew you to the kind?
Well, I'd started doing trail running about 2 years before that, on the encouragement of my best friend and running partner, who got me involved in some other multi-stage races. And I just wanted to take it up a notch and see what I was capable of. And this being a self-sufficient race seemed like a big enough notch.
That, of course, is part of the appeal. What really appeals? You've got 3 behind you. If you think back on it, what do you remember most fondly about your races?
I remember all the pain. I remember the long, hard days. I remember the long day in particular, the heat, the sand, grinding it through, racing. When you're racing, you're always, incurring more pain. And but having said that, when you get to the finish line, it all just comes together and all makes sense, and you just can't wait for the next one.
And for you?
Sure, it was such a special experience on a personal level. Some of the loneliest times I've had, but so much time to reflect and just to get to know yourself well, and then the great camaraderie of being so close to a smallish group of people that spend so much time together in the evenings, experiencing the same things, and that was also wonderful. You make real family there.
So one of the big features, of course, and that's what the second program in our Extreme Trail Talk series is about, is nutrition and how you go about it, because this is a race where you have to pack everything in your backpack that you need from day 1 right through to day 7. Nothing else. There are water points, of course, and we'll chat about that. But obviously, the most important thing, I think, other than your training, which is done before the time, is nutrition.
For sure. If you don't get your nutrition right, you're not going to have energy to run. You've got to practice it before. You've got to know what you're eating. You've got to make sure that you're used to those foods. And that's ultimately one of the biggest factors that carries you through this race. You've got to take enough food with.
So one of the big things, of course, with any type of running, but this even more so, and I would imagine amplified by 1,000%, is if the brain isn't working properly, the body is not going to work properly, and it only works properly if it's fed properly.
That's correct. I mean, you get to a point where you over a certain mileage where it just all is about some mental power and hanging in there and keeping going. And there, nutrition does play a huge role.
Let's talk about what you guys like to eat. Let's start off with you. You've tailor-made it over the years, and you know what works for you. That comes through a lot of experimenting.
No, correct. You can't go into this race experimenting and trying something for the first time on race day. You've got to train with it. You've got to practice it. You've got to live it. And that takes a lot of trial and error, and takes a lot of years. And yeah, you make mistakes, and sometimes you even make a mistake in the race. But you got to get it right. You've got to make sure you get it right before you get into the race. Yeah.
And I want to use the term, pun intended, trial and error here, because sometimes you stumble around until you find what is right for you. With your singular race, did you have it right on the race day and the consequent days after that?
Yeah, I actually think I'm quite happy with how it turned out. I don't think that there's a lot. There's a couple of things I'd tweak, but there's not a lot I would change if I do it again. But I think that comes from years of trying things out and seeing what does work for me, and then deciding, okay, this is it, and going with that. And I was quite happy with how it turned out. But I don't think there's a formula that we can prescribe to anyone. I think you need to find what works for you, because each of us is a bit different with how your body metabolizes and what it works best on.
And that, of course, Hilton, is one of the interesting things, because our bodies change over time as well. So something that would have worked for you in 2010 may not necessarily work the next time you run this. How does one adapt to that?
Well, for me, it was the proteins and the meat. And, I started craving more meat with the more mileage that I would do, and over the years. And I just knew that I had to take more meat with, and that's why I've got the steak for the next race. But yeah, no, you've got to always take the changes into account and adapt accordingly, and take with on race day what's going to work for you at that time.
There are water points every 8 to 10 Ks, but that doesn't necessarily dictate when you eat. How do you handle that when you eat, or don't you? Do you have a certain 40 minutes, every 40 minutes I eat, or do you eat when your body tells you to eat?
It's a bit of a combination. I definitely think, you need to, if you're feeling hungry or you're starting to feel a bit tired and run down, you need to take something in, and certainly thirst should dictate your drinking. But I think you can also, over those long distances, get a bit into the habit of forgetting to eat and drink if you're not keeping an eye on it. So I do try to get into a routine where, every 3 Ks I will drink something, every 10 Ks I will eat something. And if I feel like I need something sooner, then I will take in sooner. But trying to get into that habit of making sure you do take regularly so that you don't forget and get behind, I think, is important.
So Hilton, do you also connect this with this, and that dictates rather than water points?
Yes, yeah, no, for sure. As Alison says, you've got to make a point to eat. When from a racing perspective, you incur all that pain, and you don't. The last thing on your mind sometimes is to eat, and it's difficult to eat. So you've got to really discipline yourself to eat. And yeah, it would be nice if you could eat when you get hungry, but there's many times when you're not hungry, and you've got to chow. Yeah.
As we take a look at some of the pictures from what some of the races have had over the years, and the mixes at the various stops, and people have all sorts of mooties and ways to go about things, but one of the things, and we saw that at the water point there, lots of water, lots of other things to drink, but overhydration is more dangerous than dehydration.
Look, you've got to get the balance right. You've got to drink at least when you're thirsty, and I would say a little bit more, taking into consideration the extreme heat. To overdo it, be careful of that, but get that balance right, and generally take small sips more regularly than gulping down that 1.5 litres at the checkpoint one shot. Yeah.
So we again here take a look at some of the mixes. What were you running on when you did yours, Alison, and how do you go about that?
Just during the day while running, I would have a slow glucose release, low GI drink that I would use to sip on regularly. And then I would carry along with me things to snack on. Usually when it comes to the snack foods, I'm more of a high protein fat person rather than a carb person. I think that I found that sustains you better over the longer distances. So I have sachets of nut butter, almond nut, macadamia nut butter, droevors or biltong pre-packaged, and I usually stick to that together then with my low GI drink.
Hilton, I know that you brought along a lot of things that you would have in your backpack, but one of the things, and we spoke about that just a month ago in the first edition of our program, it obviously needs to balance out with how much you're prepared to carry and how much you've trained with in your backpack, not to make it too heavy, and that's part of the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I would say rather take too much, because it's easier to get rid of. than to try and catch a fish in Orange River at a later stage.
You don't want to end up doing that, do you?
No, there's no time for all. I mean, you buggered by the time you get to the long day there by the river, so the last thing on your mind is fishing. Take enough with. You can always get rid of it. And yeah, it's always best to go in with extra. Rather too much than too little.
So show us what you've brought along, and let's work our way through what you did your races on, because I'm fascinated by what you've got there. If you took all of that with you, of course, you'd look like Schwarzenegger by the end of the run, wouldn't you?
Well, I don't know. It's a brutal race, and it's going to take its toll on you. You're going to burn most of this off. But what works well for me is Drovos or
Okay,
this
no,
is.
I've got to try that. I've got to see whether this is the real thing, because it's just too good to let go. Oh, it's got that cabanossi smell to it. Like some,
Great.
have a piece. Let's try it.
I had plenty before, so I know what it tastes like.
And what have you got in that bag over there?
Nuts works very well.
Lovely.
I love nuts. It's high energy, good
Sorry,
protein.
I'm going to interrupt you. This is very salty and very fatty. Is that what works for you
That's
or
exactly.
for everyone?
I think that would be a good combination. You know, it's salty, so have some water with it. Get those electrolytes back into the body. Yeah, it's very fatty. When that gets warm in the desert, it becomes like honey. It's juicy.
Gorgeous.
And it's exactly what the body really craves that fat. In 2015, I made a mistake of not taking enough with, and I paid the price for it later. Yeah, I love that fat and I love that protein. That's what the body craves, and I think you can get through if that is in.
And it's amazing how the other competitors who don't have that with you start like looking at you as if they might
With
kill you in your
envy.
sleep.
The green monster comes up.
Yeah.
One of the things, though, even now as I ate it, what struck me was, and I guess your pace is not where you're sucking air all the time. You're not anaerobic. How easy is that to chew while you're running?
That's the other thing.
That's one of the problems,
It is a trade-off. If you can have something that you can chuck in your water, a liquid carb, that's great because it's always easier to get down. It's hard to chew on nuts during.
Yeah.
So this is very limited. Even something like a biscuit or a Provita or something that works well for me, but it's dry. It's hard to get down. So you've got to down it with water.
Balance it.
Yeah.
Okay. What else you got?
For the evening, also a lot of some more protein, some tuna.
This is John West light meat tuna pieces with a twist. And there's some oven-dried tomato and herb dressing in there as well, so you can see that quite clearly. And this does it's packed so that the heat doesn't affect it.
Yeah, look after it though. I mean, you don't want this to
course.
get direct sunlight the whole time.
Yeah,
So pack it deep in the pack. Mix it in with some pasta or some 2-minute noodles.
And this is
very
all
popular.
now at night, huh?
Yeah.
This is your recovery meal.
This would be in the evening. Yeah.
Okay, right. This pass us that steak, by the way, because did you do this, Alison, in your run, or didn't you take steak?
No, being on the smaller side, I had to, really what weight I carried because there's not to because
How much did your pack weigh?
my pack weighed 9 kilograms on day one.
Right,
So
so you didn't have any.
No,
So this is vacuum packed. And the lads tell me that you can actually it's almost cooked by the time you get. You just have to put it on the fire and off you go that night.
Just finish
But
it off. Yeah.
That doesn't last. You're taking chances if you
Yeah.
start taking steak into day 3.
No, for sure. No. I think day 1 and day 2 in the evening would be suitable. After that, I think you're taking a chance. And vacuum packed. Some guys even go in with it frozen, rock hard, covered in newspaper, just to prolong it. Yeah, but I haven't done it yet, but I'm definitely considering doing it in the next one. I've seen other guys like Alvain, I learned from him.
Yeah.
And when they're flipping it on the braai there in the night, man.
I'm convinced someone would probably kill someone else for it. Well, the thought is at least past your mind, isn't it?
that's what's good that they can't do it past day 2.
Right. As we take a look here, as the lads and lasses make their way through, and one more of water point areas, the one thing that strikes you about these pictures, and I'm going to go off theme here for just a second, it's desolate and it's alone. How do you get through that? Because you must go for kilometers at a time where you don't see another person.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first 3 days, I think that, it was actually quite amazing, especially if you've been working hard and you actually it's quite nice to have this time to yourself and it's a lot, it's just to clear your head, and I find it to be the best holidays because you really get away from everything. But the long day, which was exactly that, went for long periods of time without seeing anyone. It does get lonely, but it's a good time for reflection, and it's really beautiful scenery, and nothing beats the early mornings and the late evenings in that desolate setting.
You were obviously competing right in the front there, so it's a different type of mindset. You're concentrating on other things. Loneliness didn't play a part, or did it?
Not really. I prefer to be lonely as opposed to having the crowds around. What does help is as the race progresses, there's staggered starts, so you do end up passing the back runners as you progress in the stage, and that's nice because you can always encourage each other, and you see somebody so you don't think you're lost or whatnot out there. But yeah, I'm more of an introvert, so being out alone is fine for me. I mean,
you can tell I'm the extrovert.
The pictures we just saw there was one of the stops, obviously, and what I wanted to know from you is I hear a birdie whisper that at these places they would bake bread sometimes, and that bread smell, that baking bread, that can be a bit of a swine as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, didn't have that just as well.
My good friend Dirk Klutter, he's a master at that, especially in camp at night, and not so much on the checkpoints, obviously. But yeah, it's nice. I mean, the body craves all types of foods. I mean, I'm not very finicky when it comes to different types of foods and what's healthy or not. I mean, you're craving food, you're craving energy, and whether it's bread or meat or whatever, it's always welcome.
What else goes into your pack? Pass me that, and I'll put that down here for you. Thank you. Got it.
Something very good as recovery soup. Always works
Also
well.
salty.
So
Yeah.
this is a cup of soup, and you obviously get hot water at the overnight stop, so this helps for that as well.
Yeah.
And this is rich oxtail, so that also makes up for the protein.
Breakfast.
Good old rolled oats.
I'm a good old rolled oats fan.
Yep.
With some goji berries.
Okay, now this is a fascinating thing for me because
Okay.
I did play cricket in my day. The goji berries, and you spoke about this as well, Alison. You put them in your pack. Tell us about that.
So, well, I make my own cereal. So it's a mixture of ground up almonds, a variety of seeds, coconut flakes, and I would normally put some goji berries in there as well. Also, importantly, and this has to be, I put psyllium husk fibre in, which keeps one regular, which, as all runners would know, is a useful thing to have.
I was going to go
every
in
morning
that
before
direction.
a run.
In any case, because obviously with what you're putting your body through, you're at the edge of where you're pushing too hard, and diarrhea could be a problem. Also, I would assume that you can't always be as clean with your food as what you want to be. Is that a problem? Does that become a problem?
I think there's sufficient water in the camps in the evening that, and taking things along like wet wipes and that,
Okay.
I think that you can manage. And then I think also that is where what you put in, and the importance of sort of packaging individual meals separately, only opening up what you need for that particular meal.
And do you mark it per day, or do you eat what you feel like? That's another thing that I think is quite important, because you'll get people, and I don't know, you guys may be those people who say, well, on this day I'm eating that, and on this day I'm eating that, or do you go with what you crave?
I did mark mine per day, but I had pretty much the same thing for every day, just slight variety of couscous flavouring, which that's the one thing that I would probably change if I do it again, is to have a bit more variety, because by day 5 you do start actually getting a little bit tired of eating the same thing, and so some variety would work. But generally I'd stick to what I'd marked for that day, but you might sort of have tomorrow's hot chocolate a day sooner, or
Hilton, do you give in to the craving, or do you stick to rigidly what you kind of plan?
I think you're going with a rough plan. I'm not too technical, so I think it's good to adapt and eat what you feel like when you need it. So if I haven't budgeted for it on day 1, and I need to grab into day 4's pack for day 1, that's not a problem, as long as I don't deplete everything that I'm craving. But yeah, I think like Alison said, going with a variety, that's something I would do differently. The race is so hard and brutal as it is, you want to make sure that you have a lekker time in the camp at night, and food is part of that. Yeah.
Well, this is at night. So we spoke about breakfast. So your breakfast is virtually the same kind of thing. What else do you take then for your dinner?
For the dinner, something that worked well for me in 2012 was Future Life. So it's actually a breakfast, but I mean you can actually run with this also.
Of course.
And if I'm still feeling a bit hungry after dinner, then I'll have a cup of that.
So at the risk of sounding like a Future Life commercial, but it says high in energy, high in dietary fiber, 19 amino acids and 23 vitamins and minerals, multigrains, non-GMO and high in chromium. So everything that you need to recover here to a great degree as well, isn't it?
And you get different types. I mean, you get the one that's high protein also. So I don't think that one is, but I usually go with the high protein one also. Yeah.
And dinner for you?
After the day's run, I had a recovery drink, which was also a high protein drink, and together with one of those tuna sachets, because you do get into camp depending on the day. You may get in sort of early afternoon, so you might have a little while to go before dinner time. And then for dinner, I would have couscous, because that was easy to make with just hot water.
And that's high in protein as well.
And then some carbs in there. And then I would use the cabanossi, because that had the fats and the protein, and would chuck that in with the couscous. And
Okay, I'm taking this cabanossi home just one. What else have you got in that box of yours? Because you mentioned Provitas, but the interesting thing about the Provita is obviously you've got to be it's packs lightly, and you can pack them in little come in little plastic sachets as well, and that makes a difference too, doesn't it?
Yeah, you can format them to fit into your pack. They can fit around your clothing or whatever, and if they crush and break, it's not the end of the world. It's just nice to have a nice snack. Sometimes on the run, but like I said, it's very dry in the mouth, so definitely afterwards, snacking or waiting patiently for your stage to start again. When the staggered starts, sometimes we start only at lunchtime, so yeah, that's always good. And then something on the run, rehydrate.
That's mine as well.
That's I mean, you do get your stages.
Just
where you,
why rehydrate? Why that type of drink?
A lot of electrolytes, and I read about it, and I heard somebody said, and I tried it, and after you've had one, even if it's halfway into the stage, you just feel a lot better.
Awesome.
There's something in it that just gets your body going again.
So that may be one of the things that I think is very interesting, and we haven't really talked about that. How do you monitor what you need during the run? So we've spoken about breakfast and dinner, and I think we've got a fairly good idea. But how do you, the two of you, how do you monitor all the time what you need? Or again, do you go by what you feel like?
I think it's once again a combination, because I think by the time you start feeling tired because you maybe haven't taken insufficient energy, you're already on a back foot. So you want to get in there before you start feeling the effects of not having had enough. So I think definitely from the eating point of view, and as you mentioned earlier, you don't always feel like eating. I mean, anybody who does long runs, that sometimes takes a little while after a long run for your appetite to kick in. But this you need to eat to get ready for the next long run the next day for the 7 days in a row. So you've got to force yourself to eat.
And that only happens during training.
Yeah.
You've got to teach yourself to be able to do that during training. I mean, that's the key to it all, isn't it?
No, for sure. When I went into this race for the first time, I actually simulated the distances, and I took the distance, and I times it by 2 divided by 3, so I took 2/3 of the distance, and then I trained on that with the food, obviously way before the race, a month before the race. And in that period I was, it was also a week, and there's just had to discipline myself to eat. But that you learn from other ultra races, whether it's road or trail. You've got to get the food in. Any person in ultra distance running will tell you need to eat during a race, and that is critical.
Here's a comment from someone on Facebook, Gary Cambridge. Gary, thanks for getting in contact with us. Gary is someone who has completed this one, and he says, one food I take is Parmesan cheese, and the flavor wakes up your mouth. I quite like that, actually. That's a lovely way to think about it. Is there a food for you that wakes up your mouth, like Gary says?
One of the things that I quite enjoy, because, a lot of the foods do get a bit bland, or you might get a bit tired of something too salty or even something too sweet, is something like like the
gorgeous.
race
Oh,
food.
yeah.
Specifically these ones that have come out now that are made with dates. That's it's just sort of the right level of sweetness without being too sweet. And it's just nice to have and those come in a variety of flavors. So it's just nice to have something different.
Yeah.
And I think that is to have that sort of treat at the end of the day that you.
This is an apple pear and cinnamon race food far barn, actually endorsed by the Comrades Marathon as well. And if you haven't tasted it, we highly recommend it. Again, that's a commercial out there for free. But the nice thing about it is this is dynamite. It really is. The problem is if you eat one, you want 3 or 4 more. That's part of the deal.
Yeah.
But I've experienced this at the end of Comrades, and it's not comparable, obviously, but I think the principle stands. In the last 20 Ks, you're so tired of Coke, and then they give you cream soda. Oh, it's gorgeous. It's like Moe.
The only place I drink cream soda.
Yeah, me too. I don't touch it any other. But it's exactly, the principle is exactly the same. You get a bit hutful of all these same taste. How do you break that?
Just by having something different. You know, it becomes a mental thing when you get tired and you're hurting, and you know, to get anything down could also be a problem. You know, I've definitely noticed that, especially on the long runs. You know, whether it's great tasting or not, it could be a mission to get down. But I think with the more variety is key. Some guys even take Drinker Pop just to change the taste of the water. But you know, again, you won't know those things unless you've trained and found it out a couple of months before the race. Yeah.
For you at the front edge of the field, people often look up to the guys who get first and second and third up there, and in your case to second place. There's no secret to nutrition, though. It's bumping your head until you find what works for you, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no formula that will work for everybody. You've got to experiment. You've got to take the time out and try, and you've got to read the packaging and check the energy levels, the kilojoules, the calories, and play around with the stuff, and then live by it. You know, have it. Even when you're not running, you know, just wake up, have it for breakfast. Get the body used to it.
Alison, for you as well, did you have anything that you thought, that's my secret, that works for me?
So it was mixing my coffee and my hot chocolate sachets together in the morning. It was the most marvelous thing, and certainly gave me the energy to get out of bed. But I think the important thing, just to mention, especially for the ladies out there wanting to do this, because you know we are smaller built, so we do have to be a bit more cognizant of how much weight we're carrying, because those bags are heavy. At least you're eating it, as you eat it gets less. But so you do need to pack cleverly. You can't take as much as you would like, because you do need to be aware of the weight. So I think if if you can get energy-rich food and pack as light as you can. But I think the thing that was interesting for me is that, you know, at the end of the first day, I was like, how am I going to survive? Because this just doesn't feel like enough food for one day, and now I've got to last 7 days. But by the end of the second day, you actually start getting used to eating what you've got. And I think that's just it was an indicator for me as to how much we actually overeat on a daily basis, because now when you've only got this much to eat, we could actually manage on that.
It sounds like you mentally made peace with what you have to do. So it's a mental shift rather than a physical shift, am I right?
Yeah, for sure. No, the mental aspect is huge, and it's like Alison says, you know that's what you've got, and you've got to get through with it. And you can't chow as much as you want as you do at home. And you find a way to do it without scratching into somebody else's backpack.
I can imagine one must be tempted at times. I can just imagine what hunger can do to you. Almost time for us to wrap it up, but let's chat about your race, the Heaven and Hell Mountain Marathon in Rhodes, which you're involved with. Give us the rundown on that.
It's a brutal mountain marathon. It's not even a trail run. It's pure mountain or fell running. 90 meters elevation gain per kilometer.
Per K. Yeah. And this is a half marathon and a full marathon over 42 Ks.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's a 21K and a 42K option. Set in the beautiful mountains of the southern Drakensberg, very close to the border of Lesotho, close to Tiffendal Ski Resort. You're climbing all the major peaks in and around our farm. It's absolutely amazing up there, 360 views. Feeling like hell going up, but the views up top make it worth it. Yeah.
And when is the race?
22nd of September this year.
Is there a website where people can pop in and go and have a look at it?
Yes, World Wide Web dot Alpine Swift Trails. I think it's Alpine Swift Trails. Yes,
okay.
yeah.
Right.
.co.za. Yeah.
And how many years have you had this on the go?
This will be the third one.
Third one. Excellent. And how's it been received so far?
Yeah, it's tough. It's brutal. I think it's attracts a certain type of individual, but also those that are up for a challenge themselves. Yeah.
You said certain individuals. I will just say crazy runners. That's all I'll say. Alison, with you, that Comrades Green number beckoning, it's 10 in a row. Not many people do 10 in a row. That's fantastic. Well done. How's the training gone? I know that you've had some trouble.
Yeah, I did have a bit of an injury at the end of last year, which kept me out of running for 3 months, but back on the road. So if all goes well, it'll hopefully be a special June this year.
Give us a prediction of finish time.
Sure. This year I'm not predicting. I just want to get that green number, so we'll see how it goes.
Look out then for Alison in race number 43993. If you are watching, comrades, or if you're out there running, give her a pat on the back. I mean, that is just for having a Comrades Green number is something special. So we hold thumbs for you, and we hope it goes really well. I also wanted to show you that these are not just here for show, because these are the extraordinary finishers trophies that everyone gets, and this is the Kalahari Augrabies Xtreme Marathon. This is what it looked like in 2016, and this is the medal wrapped around one of the rocks that comes from that part of the world. So we do think that if you haven't as of yet taken this one on, and you've always thought that this is one you want to do, we highly suggest that you do. Pop in at our website, Kalahari Augrabies Xtreme Marathon. Just Google it. You'll be able to see it there. And if you have any Facebook questions as well, we're very happy to handle that with you too. www.kaem.coza. It's 250 kilometers, 6 legs over 7 days between the 18th to the 28th of October 2018. Hilton Dunn, thank you very much for coming in. Best of luck with your race. I hope to be out there and to come and help you with the chatting there. It'll be great to be there. And Alison, no more injuries, okay? No more injuries until after June. So keep it on the road. To you out there as well, if you are preparing for the race, we hope that this helped. We'll be back in about a month's time with more Extreme Trail Talk as we take you through the Kalahari Augrabies Xtreme Marathon and every single facet of what it needs to complete one of the toughest races on the face of the planet. I'm Arnold Gert saying thanks for watching.